Dear listeners, a new day and a new story to discuss. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that interests me. Listen and write down what you think about this situation. I'm interested in your opinions. The sun hadn't even peeked over the horizon when my alarm clock blared its usual wake-up call. I'm Jack, by the way. Friends call me Jack. Some say I've got the spirit of a maverick, ditching the corporate grind 8 years back to carve my own path as an entrepreneur. That morning, with the first light of dawn creeping in, I lay there for a moment, letting the reality of my life sink in. I got up, feeling the familiar creak in my knees, a souvenir from my high school football days. I glanced over to Linda's side of the bed. Empty, as expected. She's always been the early bird, up with the sun, out for her morning run. Even after 2 decades together, her energy amazed me. I shuffled to the window, pulling the curtains aside just in time to see her silhouette jogging down the street, her stride as confident and unwavering as the day we met. Always beating the sun. Linda? I muttered to myself with a chuckle. Our home hummed with the quiet of early morning. I started my daily routine, coffee first, black, 2 sugars. As the aroma filled the kitchen, my mind wandered to our kids. Sarah, our daughter, had taken after her mother in more ways than one. A recent FSU grad, she was now a first-grade teacher down in Naples. She'd also picked up Linda's running habit and, to my delight, my passion for homebrewed beer. Then there was Michael, our boy, in his last year at college, with dreams of joining my little empire. But I'd been firm about him getting some outside experience first. Gotta earn your stripes, son, I'd always tell him. The coffee was ready, and I poured myself a mug, the warmth a welcome contrast to the morning chill. I took a sip and let the caffeine do its work. Today was brewing day, and I needed to be on my game. Linda despised the smell of brewing beer, so I timed my batches for when she was away. She was in Dallas now, supposedly for work, and I had planned to craft an English brown ale in her absence. As I gathered my brewing supplies, my phone buzzed, a message from Bobby, an old buddy from the beer club. Hey, Jack, flight's early. Need a pickup at 10. Sure thing, Bobby. See you at the airport, I replied, making a mental note. Bobby was one of those friends you couldn't say no to, always there when you needed him. The morning passed in a blur of malt and hops. I lost myself in the methodical process of brewing, a ritual that never failed to calm my mind. But as the clock neared 10, I cleaned up, swapped my apron for a jacket, and headed out to the airport. The drive was smooth, and I found myself at the arrivals terminal with time to spare. Leaning against my car, I watched people bustling in and out. Families reuniting, friends embracing, it was the kind of place where every emotion was on display. Then something caught my eye. A group of people, Linda's colleagues from her company, emerged from the sliding doors. I straightened up, scanning the crowd for Linda. But she wasn't there. That was odd. She was supposed to be in Dallas with them. A knot formed in my stomach. I pulled out my phone and dialed her office number, something I hadn't done in a long time. It went straight to voicemail, her cheerful tone informing callers she was out of town. Confusion turned to suspicion. Where was Linda? I grabbed my phone again and sent a quick text to Bobby, letting him know I'd be a few minutes late. As I waited, I called Steve, a detective and fellow member of the beer club. Hey, Steve, it's Jack. Got a minute? For you, always. What's up? Steve's voice was calm, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing in my head. It's Linda. She's supposed to be in Dallas, but her team just landed here without her. Something's not adding up. Steve paused, then said, Sounds fishy, Jack. Want me to look into it? I hesitated, a part of me not wanting to know. But the other part, the part that needed the truth, won over. Yeah, Steve. I need to know what's going on. He assured me he'd start digging and get back to me. We hung up, and I let out a long breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. The simple act of reaching out to Steve had turned my vague unease into a tangible concern. What was Linda hiding? Bobby's flight landed, pulling me out of my thoughts. I greeted him with a handshake and a half-hearted smile. Sorry to keep you waiting, man. No worries, Jack. Everything okay? Bobby asked, his brow furrowed with concern. Just some things on my mind. Let's grab a beer later. I'll fill you in. As we drove back, my mind raced with possibilities. Linda's absence, her silence, the sudden shift in her routine, it all pointed to a secret she wasn't sharing. And I was determined to uncover it, no matter what it took. The road stretched ahead, mirroring the journey I was about to embark on, a journey into the unknown, a journey that could change everything I thought I knew about my life and the woman I shared it with. The next day dawned with a restless energy, much like the storm of thoughts swirling in my head. I'd spent a sleepless night, visions of Linda's unexplained absence haunting me. I was a man on edge, standing at the crossroads of doubt and the life I'd known for years. I gulped down my morning coffee, its bitterness mirroring my mood. The clock on the kitchen wall ticked loudly, marking the passing seconds in a house that felt too empty, too silent. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. My phone vibrated, breaking the morning stillness. It was Steve, his name flashing on the screen like a beacon of hope in my sea of uncertainty. "Jack, got a moment?" Steve's voice was serious, a tone that prepared me for news I wasn't sure I wanted to hear. "Go ahead, Steve. I'm all ears," I replied, bracing myself. I did some digging. Linda wasn't listed on any flights to Dallas this week. "And there's no hotel booking under her name either," Steve said, the words hitting me like a freight train. "No flights? No hotel? That doesn't make any sense," I stammered, my mind racing. "There's more," Steve continued. "I talked to a few people at her company. They thought she was on a personal leave. Seems like no one knows her real whereabouts." I paced the kitchen floor, each step heavy with the weight of betrayal. "Steve, I need to find out what's going on. Can you put me in touch with a good private investigator? I know just the guy. Frank Jones. He's discreet and thorough." "I'll send you his contact info," Steve assured me. I hung up, feeling a mix of gratitude and dread. Frank Jones, a new ally in this unexpected battle for the truth. I picked up the phone again and dialed the number Steve had sent. It rang twice before a gruff voice answered. "Frank Jones speaking." "Frank, I'm Jack, a friend of Steve's. I need your help to track my wife. She's missing, and I suspect she's hiding something." Frank's voice was calm, seasoned. "Let's meet, Jack. I need all the details you can give me." We agreed to meet at a local diner, a place where the coffee was strong and the booths offered privacy. I arrived early, my mind a whirlwind of scenarios and possibilities. Frank walked in a few minutes later, a man whose appearance screamed private eye, sharp suit, weathered face, and eyes that missed nothing. We shook hands, and I laid it all out for him, the missing wife, the lies, my suspicions. Frank listened intently, nodding occasionally, his expression unreadable. "Jack, this could go many ways. Are you sure you want to uncover whatever's out there?" Frank's question hung in the air, heavy with implications. "I need to know, Frank. No matter what it is," I replied, my voice steady with resolve. Frank outlined his plan. He'd start with Linda's recent activities, her financial transactions, phone records, and then expand the search based on what he found. "It's like peeling an onion, Jack. We need to be prepared for what we uncover layer by layer." I nodded, understanding the risks. This wasn't just a search for Linda, it was a search for the truth about the life we'd built together. After the meeting, I headed home, my mind a tumult of emotions. I needed to keep busy, to distract myself from the storm raging inside me. I decided to do some sleuthing of my own. I started with Linda's home office, a room I rarely entered. It was neat, organized, but as I sifted through her papers, her files, I found nothing out of the ordinary. It was like looking for a needle in a haystack, without knowing if there was even a needle to find. Next, I moved to her personal space, her dresser, her closet. I felt like an intruder in my own home, sifting through my wife's belongings with a growing sense of despair. Clothes, shoes, jewelry, everything as it should be, yet nothing that shed light on her disappearance. I sat on the edge of our bed, surrounded by the fragments of our shared life, feeling more alone than ever. The room echoed with memories, with whispers of a happier time. And there I was, lost in a maze of doubts and fears, waiting for Frank to call, to throw me a lifeline in this sea of uncertainty. As night fell, I realized the gravity of what I was doing. I was unraveling the fabric of our life, thread by thread, unsure of what I'd find, or if I'd even recognize the picture it once formed. "Linda, where are you? What have you done?" The questions haunted me, each one a reminder of the unsettling discovery that had set me on this path. The morning sun cast long shadows across my living room as I sat, waiting. My phone, a silent sentinel on the table, was my only link to Frank Jones, the private investigator I'd set on Linda's trail. Each tick of the clock was a loud echo in the quiet room, a reminder of the tension coiling within me. I tried to distract myself with the newspaper, but the words blurred together, meaningless. My mind was a whirlwind, thoughts of Linda, our life together, and what secrets she might be hiding swirling uncontrollably. I couldn't sit still. Standing up, I paced the room, each step a pulse of restless energy. Then, the phone rang. It was Frank. "Jack, we need to talk." "I've got something," he said, his voice a mix of caution and urgency. "I'll be right there," I replied, grabbing my keys and heading out the door. The drive to Frank's office was a blur. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, as scenarios played out in my mind. What had Frank discovered? Was I ready for the truth? I arrived at Frank's office, a nondescript building in the heart of the city. The receptionist nodded me through, and I found myself in Frank's office, a room filled with the paraphernalia of his trade, maps, filing cabinets, and an array of monitors. "Jack, take a seat," Frank gestured, his face grave. I sat, my heart pounding in my chest. "Your wife's been busy, but not in Dallas. We tracked her credit card activity. She's been in town, staying at a local hotel under a different name. And there's more," Frank said, handing me a folder. I opened it, and my world tilted. Photos of Linda, but not the Linda I knew. These images showed her with another man, intimate, close. My hands trembled as I flipped through them. "Who is he?" My voice was barely a whisper, drowned out by the roaring in my ears. "We're still working on that. But it's clear, Jack. She's having an affair." The word affair hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air in a sea of betrayal. "What do you want to do, Jack?" Frank's question pulled me back to the surface. I was torn between rage and heartbreak. "I need to know everything, Frank. Who he is, how long this has been going on. Everything." Frank nodded, understanding in his eyes. "We'll keep digging. But be prepared, Jack. This might get uglier before it gets clearer." I left Frank's office feeling like a shell of a man. The drive home was automatic, my mind numb with shock. I arrived back to a house that no longer felt like home. It was a facade, a lie wrapped in the trappings of domestic bliss. I needed to think, to process. I found myself in our backyard, the garden Linda loved so much, now a reminder of all that was false. I sat on the bench, our bench, and let the reality wash over me. The woman I loved, the mother of my children, living a double life right under my nose. How had I not seen it? The signs must have been there, but I was too blinded by trust, by love, to see them. Night fell, and with it came a cold clarity. I couldn't just sit back and let this happen. I had to confront her, to face this head on. But first, I needed the full picture, all the pieces of this puzzle that was my shattered life. I went inside and headed to Linda's office again. This time, I searched more thoroughly. Drawers, files, even her computer. Anything that might give me more answers. Hours passed, and I found nothing more. Just the mundane details of her life, a life that was now a mystery to me. Exhausted, I sank into our bed, alone. The bed we'd shared for over 2 decades now felt cold, empty. Sleep eluded me as images from the photos haunted me, each one a stab of betrayal. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, the night stretching endlessly before me. This was just the beginning, the first step into a dark journey. And I knew, deep down, that the path ahead would be fraught with pain and revelations that might just break me. But I had to know. I had to uncover the truth about the woman I thought I knew, the life I thought we had. No matter what it took, no matter how deep I had to dig. The morning light crept in, a stark contrast to the darkness that had settled in my heart. With each passing day, the web of lies and secrets seemed to grow thicker, more entangled. I sat at the kitchen table, a cup of untouched coffee growing cold in front of me, my mind a tempest of emotions. The phone rang, slicing through the silence of the house. It was Frank. "Jack, we need to meet. There's been a development." I grabbed my jacket and headed out, the urgency in Frank's voice propelling me forward. The drive to his office was a blur, my thoughts racing faster than the car. What had he discovered now? Was I ready to face whatever new revelations lay in wait? Frank's office was dimly lit, the morning sun barely filtering through the blinds. He sat behind his desk, a stack of papers and photos spread out before him. "Jack, take a seat," he said, his voice somber. I sat down, bracing myself for what was coming. "We've done some more digging into your wife's activities. It's not just an affair, Jack. It's more complicated." My heart sank. "What do you mean, more complicated?" Frank slid a photo across the desk. It was Linda, but not alone. She was with a group of people, the same man from the earlier photos and several others, both men and women. They were laughing, toasting, a scene of camaraderie. "This isn't just a fling, Jack. Your wife is part of something. A group. They meet regularly, always in secret, always careful to cover their tracks." A group? The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Linda, part of some secret group? It made no sense. "Who are they?" I managed to ask, my voice strained. "We're still working on that." But from what we've gathered, they're all professionals, like Linda. They've been doing this for a while now. The room seemed to spin around me. This was more than an affair. It was a double life, a betrayal on a level I couldn't even fathom. Jack, there's something else, Frank continued, his tone hesitant. We found evidence that they might be involved in illicit activities. More than just affairs. Illicit activities? The words echoed in my mind, a sinister undertone to the already dark melody of deception. What kind of activities? I asked, dreading the answer. We're not sure yet, but it's possible they're involved in something illegal. We're digging deeper, but you need to be prepared for what we might find. I leaned back in my chair, overwhelmed. My wife, the woman I had loved and trusted for over 2 decades, was a stranger to me. Her life, a tangled web of secrets and lies. I stood up, my legs shaky. Frank, keep digging. I need to know everything, no matter how bad it is. Frank nodded, his eyes meeting mine. We'll get to the bottom of this, Jack. You have my word. I left his office feeling like I was walking through a fog. The world around me seemed distant, unreal. As I drove home, the weight of the revelations bore down on me, a crushing burden. I needed to confront Linda, to ask her myself. But a part of me feared what her answers might be. How deep did this web go? And how could I ever hope to untangle it? I arrived home to an empty house, the silence a stark reminder of the void that had grown between Linda and me. I wandered through the rooms, each one filled with memories, now tainted by the shadow of her deceit. I ended up in our bedroom, standing before the mirror. The man staring back at me was a stranger, hollow-eyed and lost. I barely recognized myself. How had it come to this? I sat on the edge of the bed, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and hurt. Linda's betrayal was more than just an affair. It was a labyrinth of lies, a tangled web that ensnared everything I had believed in. The sun set, casting long shadows across the room. I sat there, alone, waiting for Linda to come home, waiting to confront her, to demand the truth. But deep down, I feared what that truth might be. How much more could I take? How much more was there to uncover in this tangled web that was once my life? The evening air was heavy with anticipation as I paced the living room, each step echoing the turmoil in my heart. Tonight was the night. The night I would confront Linda about the tangled web of lies and deceit that had ensnared our life. The clock on the mantel ticked loudly, marking the time in a relentless rhythm. With each passing minute, my resolve strengthened. I couldn't live in the shadow of doubt and betrayal any longer. I had to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. I heard the front door open and close, the familiar sound of Linda's arrival. My heart raced, adrenaline coursing through my veins. This was it. Jack, I'm home. Linda's voice, cheerful and unsuspecting, floated in from the hallway. I took a deep breath and stepped out to meet her. There she was, my wife of over 20 years, yet now a stranger to me. She smiled, her eyes bright, unaware of the storm that was about to break. Hi, Linda, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos inside me. She walked over and leaned in for a kiss, but I stepped back, the distance between us more than just physical. Is everything okay, Jack? She asked, concern creeping into her voice. I took another deep breath. We need to talk, Linda. Her smile faded, replaced by a look of confusion. Talk about what? I pulled out the photos Frank had given me, the evidence of her betrayal. I handed them to her, my hands steady now. What is this, Jack? She asked, her voice trembling as she looked at the photos. It's you, Linda. You and them. I know about the affair. I know about the group you're involved with. The color drained from her face as she looked from the photos to me, her eyes wide with shock. Jack, I can explain, she stammered, the photos slipping from her fingers and scattering on the floor. Explain? How can you explain this, Linda? How can you explain lying to me, betraying our family? She reached out to me, but I stepped back, the gulf between us widening. Jack, please, let me explain. It's not what it looks like. Not what it looks like. I've seen the proof, Linda. Frank has been investigating. We know everything. Tears filled her eyes, her composure crumbling. Jack, I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. Sorry? Is that all you can say? After all these years, all our promises, you throw it all away for what? A thrill? An adventure? She sobbed, her body shaking. It started as just a game, a way to escape. But it got out of control. I wanted to tell you, but I couldn't. I was trapped. Trapped? You were lying to me, to our children. You were living a double life. Linda, how could you do this to us? I don't know, Jack. I was lost, confused. I thought I could keep it separate from our life, from our family. I shook my head, the pain and anger overwhelming. You thought wrong. You destroyed our family, Linda. You destroyed us. She reached for me again, desperation in her eyes. Jack, please. I love you. We can fix this. We can go to counseling, start over. Start over? How could we start over when everything we had was built on lies? No, Linda, it's too late for that. I can't trust you. I can't be with you, not after this. She collapsed to her knees, her sobs filling the room. Please, Jack, don't leave me. I need you. I looked down at her, the woman I had loved, now a symbol of betrayal and pain. I'm sorry, Linda. I can't do this. I can't be with you anymore. Turning away, I left her there, her cries echoing behind me. I walked out of the room, out of the house, the weight of the confrontation heavy on my shoulders. The night air was cool on my face, a sharp contrast to the heat of the emotions raging inside me. I walked, not knowing where I was going, only that I had to get away. Away from the lies, the betrayal, the pain. I didn't know what the future held, only that it would be a journey I would have to take alone. The confrontation had changed everything. There was no going back, only forward into the unknown. The night was long and restless. I found myself at a downtown diner, the kind of place where the coffee is strong and the night owls are plenty. The neon sign flickered outside, casting a dim glow on my untouched cup of coffee. My mind was a whirlwind of chaos, reeling from the confrontation with Linda. The truth I had sought was now a heavy burden, when I wasn't sure how to bear. I glanced at my watch. It was nearing 3 a.m. The diner was quiet, save for a few scattered patrons and the soft hum of a radio. I needed to think, to plan my next move. But first, I needed to know everything, the full extent of Linda's betrayal. My phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was Frank. Jack, we need to meet. Now. I headed out into the cool night air, driving to Frank's office, the city lights a blur as I passed them. Frank was waiting for me, his office bathed in the soft glow of a desk lamp. Jack, sit down. You're not going to like what I've found. I braced myself, the weight of the impending revelations like a physical presence in the room. It's bigger than we thought, Jack. Linda's group, they're involved in more than just affairs. There's money laundering, possibly even ties to organized crime. It's a whole network. I felt the blood drain from my face. Organized crime? Linda's involved in that? Frank nodded solemnly. It looks that way. And there's more. We've been tracking the other members of the group. They're all influential, business leaders, politicians. Linda's been playing in a dangerous league. The room spun around me. My wife, the woman I had shared my life with, was not just unfaithful, she was a criminal. What are we going to do, Frank? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Frank leaned forward, his eyes meeting mine. We have to take this to the authorities, Jack. It's the only way. But you need to be prepared for the fallout. It's going to get messy. I nodded, a sense of resolve settling over me. Do it, Frank. It's time to bring this whole thing down. The following days were a blur of activity. Frank and I met with federal agents, handing over all the evidence we had gathered. They were tight-lipped but promised a thorough investigation. I watched as the life I knew unraveled before my eyes. The truth was out, and it was uglier than I could have imagined. Linda was arrested, her face plastered on the news as part of a major crime ring bust. The scandal shook the city, the tentacles of the operation reaching far and wide. As for me, I was left to pick up the pieces. The media hounded me, looking for a story, but I had nothing to say. My children, Sarah and Michael, were devastated, struggling to come to terms with the reality of their mother's double life. I found solace in solitude, taking long drives with no destination in mind. The open road was a balm to my wounded soul, the only place where I could find some semblance of peace. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, I found myself at the beach. The sound of the waves crashing against the shore was a soothing rhythm, a reminder that life goes on, despite the chaos and heartache. I walked along the shoreline, the sand cool beneath my feet. The enormity of everything that had happened hit me all at once. My life with Linda, a lie. Our family, torn apart. And yet, amidst the wreckage, I felt a glimmer of hope. The truth was out, the web of lies unraveled. It was a painful liberation, but a necessary one. I knew the road ahead would be tough, filled with challenges and healing. But for the first time in a long time, I felt ready to face it, to rebuild and move forward. The stars twinkled above, a vast canvas of possibilities. I took a deep breath, the salty air filling my lungs. I was free, unburdened by secrets and lies. And in that freedom, I found the strength to begin anew. The journey ahead would be mine alone, a path of rediscovery and resilience. As I looked out over the ocean, the waves whispering their timeless song, I knew that this was not the end. It was a new beginning, a chance to find myself again in the aftermath of the storm. The truth had unraveled the life I knew, but in its place, I would weave a new tapestry, one of honesty, integrity, and hope,